Where the Flame Trees Bloom by Alma Flor Eda. The Rag Dolls. My great-grandmother Mina was tiny, as time not only wrinkled but also shrunk her. She was not very much taller than the jasmine and the rose bushes she tended in her garden in the little house next to ours. Like the raisin she sprinkled generously on our arroz con leche, the rice pudding she made that smelled of cinnamon and cloves, her wrinkled form was filled with sweetness. When she was not in the kitchen or in the garden, she would often sit in a rocking chair and sew. In her hands, scraps of cloth became multicolored quilts of various sizes. The large ones were wedding gifts for her many granddaughters, the small ones greeting gifts for new great-grandchildren. Yet the best pieces of cloth she saved for her rag dolls. As the light left her eyes and they became covered with an opaque glaze, she spent less and less time in the kitchen and the garden. Unable to see, she could not stitch together the scraps and patches, so she stopped making quilts and took to crochet. But her blindness did not prevent her from making dolls. Her fingers, which had created dolls for so long, were able to give shape to the dolls' heads, to braid wool for their hair, to form their bodies and limbs. Because she could not see the colors, I would help separate the greens and blues and reds that would become long skirts and bright headscarves. She would ask me, "This soft velvety piece, is it black? Can you find me a nice dark brown, a creamy chocolate, a toasted almond, a bright cinnamon?" And so the dolls would receive faces that resembled those of neighborhood children. Once a week, her sister, Genoveva, came to visit from the other end of town, and on each doll she would embroider the dark round eyes, the lips, the 2 dots for a nose. The dolls sat on the windowsill, 4, 5, 6 at a time. Little girls, some carrying cans full of water that their mothers needed to do the laundry, others loaded down with a bag of coal for cooking, and pulling a reluctant little brother or sister by the hand, would take a quick look to see whether the dolls had changed from the previous week. Or maybe, late in the afternoon, free of chores, skipping on one foot, jumping with a frayed rope, they would glance in the direction of the window and smile. Whenever birthdays approached, mothers came knocking at Mina's door, in their hands an old handkerchief with coins tied up in a corner. "How much for the one with the red skirt?" they would ask. "And for the one with the pretty braids?" Sunken in her rocking chair, my great-grandmother, sightless, knew. She knew when to say 25 cents, 30, 40, to honor the woman's pride, to allow her the joy of giving. She also knew when to say, "I'd like so much for Marissa to have it. 7 she'll be, won't she?" and hand it to the mother saying, "Just save me some scraps. I'll make another one." At other times, a young mother, weathered down by long hours of laundering and boiling clothes under the sun, cooking in makeshift stoves made out of old lard cans, would come to my grandmother's house saying only, "I've brought you a few oranges or mangoes or some watercress," and my great-grandmother would close her sightless eyes a moment, concentrating, before saying, "Oh yes, Manuelita will be 5 very soon now, won't she? Isn't it time she had her own doll? Do you see any she would like?" The mother's hand would go up to her face to cover a bashful smile, and the doll would leave its place on the front window, wrapped in the old newspaper that had previously held the golden, red, green offerings.